breaking barriers and bridging the gaps between patients and doctors. Welcome to Brainstorming with the Docs and your co-hosts, Dr. Glenn Harrison and Dr. Kolby Condos.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Brainstorming with the Docs. I'm Dr. Kolby Condos, my co-host, as always, Dr. Glenn Harrison. How's it going, bud?
Doing good, Dr. Kolby. I'm excited about this one. I think it's kind of either misunderstood or not well known.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a small portion of what we deal with, but important to know about nonetheless.
That's right.
So today we're going to be talking about some signs and symptoms of overtraining. I think that a lot of people probably suffer from this and are undiagnosed. So we're going to go through the 10 most common signs and symptoms of overtraining. And if this is your first time watching or listening to the podcast, please hit like and subscribe and then turn on notifications because we're going to continue to roll out content like this each and every other week. And hopefully we roll out something that's applicable to you. So let's talk about it. What is overtraining? Let's get started there. Why is this important and what is it?
Why is this important? I think, as we were briefly talking here, I think we overtrain because we've watched something, we've been influenced in some way that we got to push harder and harder and harder and harder, and no pain, no gain, no pain, no gain. This is what we can get embedded in our minds. And then we push and push and push, and then we end up with all these problems. Or like a lot of common athletes that I see around Colorado here, especially females, they will have to wear so many hats in society. So they were an athlete, a triathlete. A lot of triathletes I worked with that had these problems. Females, they're competitive. They're very, they're the top of their class and as a triathlete. And then life gets, time goes on. They get a little bit older. They get into a career. Then they're working all these hours, and then they're still training. So they don't want to give up their training. And then so they have that second component. Now they have a career, and then they keep going through it. Then they start a family, and then they have kids. And then they're still trying to train that level. They're not sleeping, and everything starts to fall down. Their bodies literally start deteriorating,
start to break down. Yep.
And they don't understand why. So I think this is important because we have a mindset of no pain, no gain, and we're not considering other aspects of life.
Well, and I think that we always are quick to go, exercise is a good form of, is a good health treatment.
That's true.
And it is, right?
Oh, yeah.
But like all good things, right? Too much of it can be detrimental, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if you are someone who's like, I've actually had this in my office before too. And they were a competitive cyclist and they're like, well, I'm trying to beat my PR. I'm like, dude, I get it. But you are not going to beat your PR because you are overtraining and your muscles are actually starting to deteriorate and break down. So let's take a break. Let's get centered, focus on other aspects of your health so that when we come back, you can hit your PR, right? But knowing is the first step.
That's right.
So let's talk about the 10 signs and symptoms that are most common. Actually, of these, after I was reading these, I think the first 5 were like him to a T. So when we were outlining these, so number 1 would be like persistent fatigue. You're feeling tired both physically and mentally, and you're going, I don't know why. I'm sleeping adequately. I'm eating appropriately. I just cannot get enough rest.
This is the one that I see around a lot around Colorado in the intense fitness sector. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Another one is, we just see performance start to drop. And this is where some of the people that I work with, they get frustrated. Dr. Harrison, I'm doing all this workout because that's their medicine and has been their medicine their whole life. And now my perforance is just dropping.
I can't hit my PRs. I'm not getting my time.
So what can I do? What kind of vitamins can you give me? So
maybe do less.
That's right. Yeah, maybe do less. Mood disturbances is an interesting one that we came across. I don't know if I've seen this. I have seen depression, but I think it was due to just being exhausted and a feeling of hopelessness because their PR was their world. And
right. I think that you could easily persuade me that this is like a symptom directly of overtraining or that it's a consequence associated with the other things.
Yeah.
It's like, is it actually a mood disturbance or irritability, or is it that they literally they're not making enough energy to like support those cognitive tasks?
Yeah. And then Yeah, and another one is lack of motivation, which ties right into this.
Yep.
I never met anybody with low energy that had high motivation.
Never.
I just
Never.
they're needed, you know.
Issues with sleep, that's a big one. Like again, when we talked about, this patient I was having, these first five, like this was this person to a T. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Lack
I
of
don't know if that's a.
motivation.
I don't know if that. I don't know if that. Yeah, I don't know if the insomnia is due to cortisol spikes or something like that with
I'm
stress.
sure it's part of it, right? I think the other part of it is like if you're not allowing appropriate like recovery time of your muscles, you're breaking down muscles. You have to worry about all the inflammatory intermediates associated with all that stuff. You have to worry about blood sugar dysregulation. Like it's not a simple like one facet type of thing.
Yeah,
This has got so many different concomitants associated with it. But
right.
one thing I can tell you, like from personal experience, this guy's like, I am not sleeping. I could go to bed at 8 o'clock and I'll fall asleep and I wake up at 9 o'clock and then I'm up all stinking night. You're like, oh, okay. And then you want to talk about irritability? Don't sleep
Mhm.
and be
Yeah,
tired and have your muscles starting to break down and you're not hitting your PRs and all the other stuff.
that's true. That then another one I found is interesting. Elevate or increased resting heart rate, um, higher than normal heart rate. I think that's interesting. I haven't seen that, but that's
I
a
guess
little.
I wouldn't. It's been a while since I've seen him, so I don't know that I would correlate that. I guess
That's when
maybe.
you're already getting, you're getting trauma to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what's happening. Yeah, high resting heart rate. It's not coming down. And then elevated blood pressure, um, which is something interesting. I haven't seen this. I've seen it with exhaustion. I've seen it with sleep deprivation. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the reason why it's associated with overtraining syndrome.
I mean, all of them, right? They probably
Yeah,
all go hand in hand. It's like a slow trickle down to
that's
the
right.
raging river,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? Um, number 8, this guy to a T2, recurrent injuries, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was the same. I mean, I obviously a big part of my practice is musculoskeletal care. So when this guy
Mhm.
came in and it was always the same hip flexor, it was always the same ankle, and you're just like,
So there's massive amounts of micro trauma.
yeah. And honestly, when we finally got down to it, I was like, we got to get a blood test. We're going to do a muscle enzyme test. And, we looked at his creatinine levels and his urine and all this stuff, and all of it was out of whack. And it came down to it. I was like, you got to stop. Like, you've got to
Yeah,
stop. Got to stop.
yeah.
So, also, weakened immune system. This does not surprise me whatsoever.
No, no, no. When you're that depleted, you don't have resources to defend yourself. You've beaten your defenses down to
Mm-hmm.
that. But it could be no different than any kind of physical, chemical, or emotional stress response. Like I know we talked about school and exam week and all of that. Well,
Yep.
what happens with that? Why does everybody get sick during exam weeks or whatever it is? Well, their body is in a shock. It's depleted.
The
It's not
stress
quite.
response has taken over.
Yeah, yeah. There's no time for defenses. And then hormonal imbalance. This is another one I think I see in female athletes I worked with. And now we're talking about this. I can't believe how many I've worked with here around Colorado. But irregular menstrual cycles, loss of menstrual cycle, libido non-existent, just over and over and over and over. And then there's all sorts of mood fluctuations associated with compromised menstrual cycles. And that's a big one. That's a very, very big one. And then they come in and they go to these clinics and get all these crazy hormone panels and all this stuff and Dutch tests. These are all great tests, but no one's asking them what's going on in your life, Mrs. Smith.
Right.
Oh, I run up Mount Evans. You're probably familiar with Mount Evans, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the highest paved road in North America. It's 14,100 or something. Someone's going to listen to say, no, it's 14,233 feet. I don't know, but it's over 14,000.
I'm not a geographer.
Yeah, there's people that'll just go run up it.
Yeah.
They just go run up it in the morning. And, so if Mrs.
Well,
Smith,
isn't that ultra marathoner, the female ultra marathoner? I think she runs like the Moab 230 or 240 or whatever. I
you're
think
not
she's
talking about David Goggins, are you?
No, he'd probably do it too.
He did it 3 times, I think. The last book yeah. So I didn't know there was a female.
Yeah, she's She's tough. She's harder than woodpecker lips, Glenn.
Wow.
All right, it's getting late. Let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're suffering from persistent fatigue, decreased performance, mood disturbances, insomnia, lack of motivation, decreased libido, all these things that we just talked about, and you're training for a marathon or you're training for a triathlon or whatever, a competitive cyclist, a power lifter, whatever, and you're starting to suffer from these things, get some testing done, right?
Yeah. Take
Contact a healthcare provider that will do some blood tests that'll rule out any sort of elevated muscle enzymes, that kind of stuff. And make sure you're not overtraining, because this is one of those things where if you catch it early enough, then you just do like you taper back a little bit, give yourself adequate time to heal, then it's pretty much self-recovery.
And the hardest thing that I see with people with overtraining syndrome is the psychological challenge of backing off, of slowing down. And I think if you're listening, there's no way I could do this. There's no way I could do this. Yes, you can, because if you do it, you will be able to recover and hit the ground harder in the future. You just got to get things dialed in. And I think overtraining, an important thing about overtraining syndrome is if you're 22 and that's all you do, you're going to be able to do a lot more without getting overtraining syndrome versus 40 versus 50 naturally. So we really, and what else is going on in life? Like career, sleep demands, all of these other things, these things start to stack. So don't let these pressures stack and think that your body is just going to absorb it.
Or I'll just train through it. Because honestly, if you're so worried, I think I hear that quite a bit. Like I don't think I do hear it quite a bit. I'll just train through it. Well, you could, but like you're not getting it. It's a bad use of your time. That's the best way to explain it. You're not making any gains. You're actually causing, it's detrimental to your performance, versus if you just back off a little bit, you take a little break, get all your other stuff in order, and then you get back into it. You're doing yourself a favor because you're not wasting your time. You cannot train through overtraining.
So
you know what I mean? It's like you got to give yourself a break.
Yeah, and that's a common strategy I see around here, right? Because all of their life, their activity was their medicine. Activity was their medicine for emotional health, everything. And then they start feeling bad. Well, then they just lean into it harder, right? If they're depressed, they would work out and they would get past depression. Now they're depressed because of exhaustion and fatigue and low ambition. They're just going to work out more. So too much of a good thing is a poison.
Right. So if you guys got value out of this, please hit like and subscribe, turn on notifications. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of us at info@brainstormingwiththedocs.com. You can get on our websites, which are northlakeschiropractic.com and drgharrison.com. We've provided some links down below with access to some supplements that we use and resources and stuff like that. And stay tuned, because we're going to continue to roll out content like this each and every other week, excuse me. And hopefully we roll out something that's applicable to you. So until next time, talk to you later, buddy.
Bye-bye.